Last summer, I came across a vintage sewing machine in a thrift store. Early model Singer 99K, made in 1922. Bent wood case with key for $45. It could be mine. However, in a feat of self-restraint I can only describe as Herculean, I left the store without it. Because a few weeks later, I went back to the thrift store to donate a few items and thought I would peek inside just to see if the machine was still there. It was, but this had happened. Sorely tempted, I began investigating the machine. The wires were a crumbly mess. Now, I have rewired vintage sewing machine motors before, but did I really feel like taking on another? Then I reminded myself that I have always wanted a sewing machine that I can take camping. Something portable, reliable, and independent from electricity. So I asked myself, instead of restoring this machine back to how it was, what if I turned it into something a little bit different? Like a hand crank machine? Like a hand crank machine. In this video, I am sharing my restoration process for a Singer 99K from 1922. I will show you how I assess, clean, and repair vintage sewing machines, as well as why some of the best restorations are all about bringing it back to basics. If you have a vintage sewing machine or are thinking of acquiring one, the first thing to do is assess its overall condition. Some questions to ask yourself include, is there movement? For this machine, the hand wheel does turn, the needle bar moves, and I can raise and lower the presser foot. It feels a little stiff, but cleaning and oiling will help that. Are there any parts missing or other parts that need to be replaced? Unfortunately, yes. The knee bar that operates this machine is missing. Normally, it would live tucked into the top of the case here, and then you would take it out and insert it into this slot every time you wanted to sew. So to get this machine up and running again, I have two options. One, I could buy a knee bar and rewire the motor. If I decided to go this route, I would also need to buy a new belt, as this one has seen better days. Two, I could remove the electrical components altogether and convert this into a hand crank machine. We'll talk more about the history of this machine in a moment, but something that's really cool about the 99 is it was manufactured as a hand crank machine and an electrical machine. So this model works really nicely if you're trying to convert to a hand crank. The bobbin winder tire is also very sad and crusty, so I will be replacing that as well. How easy and economical will replacing parts be? Some parts are very easy to replace. Things like spool pins, throat plates, bobbin winder tires, and belts are easy to find and pretty affordable. The parts I am considering replacing on this machine, which would either be the knee bar or a hand crank and spoked wheel, are a little harder to find and therefore not as budget friendly. I also make things a little harder on myself by trying to source, when I can, original parts rather than reproduction ones. So despite its $10 price tag, restoring this machine is actually going to be a little bit more of an investment than that. It is something that brings me great joy though. What do I think this machine will need? This machine will need a good cleaning to remove dirt buildup and lint, as well as a thorough oiling. I would like to find some extra bobbins so I can sew with a few different colors. The foot that came installed on this machine is also a zipper foot, which I was very excited about because I don't have one for my vintage machines. When I need to sew with a regular foot on this machine, I will borrow one from either my Singer 1591 or one of my featherweights because they all work with one another. As we've discussed, I will also need a way to run this machine, and intrigued by the off-grid potential, I've decided to go with a hand crank. So I've ordered parts for that conversion. Hopefully they will have arrived by the time we get to that part of the video. This step is one you might want to do in conjunction with your assessment of the machine, as a manual can help you determine what the different parts on your machine are called and which ones you might need. Having a manual for your specific machine is also important because it will show you exactly how to do things like wind the bobbin, thread the machine, and where to oil it. You can sometimes find physical copies of manuals on eBay and Etsy, though this isn't guaranteed and they can be a bit pricey. Fortunately, many manuals are available digitally. The International Sewing Machine Collectors website has many manuals available for download. You can also find vintage sewing machine Facebook groups, some of them dedicated entirely to a certain brand or model, and members often share scanned copies of manuals there. And if you, like me, enjoy having something tangible to flip through, it is easy to print your manual and put it in a folder or a binder, like I have done for the manual for my Singer 1591. The next step is one of my favorites. It's time to conduct research. The aforementioned International Sewing Machine Collectors website is a good place to start, as they have a lot of information about many different models. My favorite resources, however, are the blogs, YouTube channels, and Facebook groups maintained by other sewing machine enthusiasts. First of all, I find people's interest in and enthusiasm for vintage sewing machines so endearing, and I have learned so much from the generous folks willing to share their knowledge online. For example, Jen, who runs Vintage Sewing Machine Rehab, has a multi-video series about how to restore the Singer 99, and it goes in depth. She also has a series for the Singer Featherweight, so definitely check out her channel if you're interested in either of those machines. Finally, I also enjoy consulting online newspaper archives, like from the Library of Congress, to see if I can find advertisements from when these machines were being sold. So where did my research lead me with this machine? The Singer 99 enjoyed a long production run from 1911 to about 1958. It was designed as a portable version of the Singer 66, keeping all the mechanics of that machine, but in a lighter body. This 1951 pamphlet describes the machines as having such compact design, they can easily be carried from room to room. Now, I weighed my machine in its case, and it came in at 32.5 pounds, which strikes me as a fair amount of weight to be traipsing from room to room with. Still, considering that most machines in the early 1900s were treadle machines, this would certainly be much more portable than those. Over its production life, the Singer 99 did see some gradual design changes, such as the addition of a motor and light, numbered stitch length, and tension controls, and later models included reverse stitching. Let's take a look at mine. I looked up the serial number and discovered that this is a 99K made in 1922. The K indicates that this machine was made at the Kilbowie factory in Clydebank, Scotland. This is a pretty early model 99. It does have a motor and light, which Singer added to this machine in 1921, so just 1 year before this one was made. As we have established, the wiring is in rough shape, so I'm just going to completely remove the motor and light, but I will keep them because I may want to rewire it one day. Options. Always good to have options. The biggest indicator that this is an early model 99K is that the stitch length regulator and the tension assembly are not numbered. So if you're trying to adjust your tension or stitch length, you just kind of have to fiddle with them until you find what feels right. So that will be a fun adventure once I get this working. And speaking of, it's time to restore. The first thing I did was take the machine out of its base to make it easier to work with. While I had it flipped up like this, I also removed some of the chunkier bits of dirt and lint from the bobbin area. I find this task so satisfying, and it also makes me wonder at what projects this debris came from. Who used this machine, and what did they create? I used a portable air duster to blow dirt out of the hard-to-reach nooks and crannies. The duster I have converts into a mini vacuum so I can clean up as I go. Next, I removed the light, which is attached to the machine via a thumb screw and a metal arm that has a hole that slides onto the spool pin. I also removed the motor and the worn-out belt. I won't need any of these parts for this restoration, but I am going to keep them in case I want to make this an electric machine again someday. At this stage in the process, I wasn't focused on detailed cleaning, but I did remove any loose, prominent dirt either with my air duster or a dry paintbrush. Next, I removed the stop-motion knob and the hand wheel. Because a hand crank machine requires a spoked wheel to function, this hand wheel will not need to go back onto the machine, but like the motor and light, I'll keep it just in case. Then I removed the bobbin winder, as well as the tension assembly. At this point, I was accumulating a lot of little screws and parts, so here's how I keep these organized. I use little magnetic dishes that I make myself with thrifted plates and saucers and neodymium magnets. For the parts that I won't need to add back to the machine, I decided to make labels and store them in some boxes I made from upcycled cardboard tubes. Is this the most practical storage solution? Probably not, but it is adorable. I removed the faceplate, which is perhaps the prettiest part of this machine, and stored the screw that holds it in place back on the machine. As you can see, there are several more screws in here, but I'm going to leave those alone. I have seen restorations where folks completely disassemble a machine so they can thoroughly clean every last part. Maybe I'll do that someday, but I am currently not confident in my ability to get everything put back together properly and adjust the timing to be right. So for my restorations, I only take things apart to the point where I feel comfortable that I can get them back together. I removed the needle and needle clamp, the thumb screw that holds the presser foot in place, and the thread cutter. Does anyone use these? For some reason, I only ever use snips or scissors. Then it was time for the bobbin area. I removed the slide plate, the bobbin, this friction spring, and the needle plate. I undid this screw that holds the bobbin case positioning bracket in place and flipped the machine on its nose so I could remove the screw that holds the feed dogs in place. I then took out the bobbin positioning bracket. Some people disassemble these completely for cleaning, but I'm terrified of that prospect, so I'll do my best to clean it while keeping it assembled. The last step of the disassembly process was to take out the bobbin case, as well as some more dust bunnies. Now the machine is ready for cleaning. I began with the all-metal parts I completely removed from the machine. Using diluted cred cutter, I misted the parts, grabbed some old toothbrushes, and got to work scrubbing. There was a lot of scrubbing. I know some people use an ultrasonic cleaner for this part, which does a great job, but I don't have one, so I use patience and elbow grease instead. I find these metal picks are useful for dislodging caked on dirt, spots of rust, and dried up oil. I just try to be careful to use the flat side of the pick and not the sharp point. They also work well for cleaning the slots on screw heads. Cotton swabs are also a very useful tool when restoring vintage sewing machines. as are the bottoms of old yogurt containers, where I let parts sit in my Cred Cutter solution. You can see how dirty the water gets. When I am finished with this task, I make sure to thoroughly dry the parts to avoid rust. Once I begin cleaning anything attached to the body of the machine, I switch from Cred Cutter to a product called Blue Creeper. This was originally formulated for the logging industry to keep chainsaw teeth lubricated and rust-free. The vintage sewing machine restoration community caught wind, fell in love, and now the company makes their own sewing machine oil in addition to this multi-purpose lubricant. I totally get the fanfare. It is safe for it to come into contact with the machine's painted surfaces, and it's not only great for lubricating, but also cleaning. Check out the job it does beneath the faceplate. As well as the rest of the machine. Now it is time to move on to cleaning and polishing the body of the machine. So there are a total of 3 layers on these vintage Singer sewing machines. The black painted layer, the gold decals, and the top coat. I recently bought this nifty little black light from the Singer Featherweight shop, which is supposed to illuminate the top coat on vintage sewing machines. See this ghostly green? That's where the top coat is still intact. As you can see, much of the top coat on this machine has completely worn away. There's not a whole lot I can do about that, at least not within my skill set, but I can clean and polish the machine to make it look nice and shiny. Many people simply use sewing machine oil for this task, and I have done that before with good results. But I decided to purchase special cleaner and wax, also from the Singer Featherweight shop, because I thought it might help create a slippery surface for the fabric to slide across. Yeah, that's actually a bold-faced lie. I just wanted to experiment with new products. And I liked these. I definitely prefer the finish they left over that of just using sewing machine oil. What's funny though is that cleaning and polishing actually made the patchy top coat even more obvious. And I kind of love it. This machine is 104 years old with a story to tell. I think she looks great like this. Okay, time to reassemble. I began the reassembly process by doing my best to remove this dirt buildup from the bobbin case positioning bracket, because I forgot to do that during the cleaning step. Then I removed this spring that houses the felt wick that will oil the bobbin race. I cut a new piece using a spare felt spool pad, and reinserted the spring. Let's keep it moving. I then gave the machine a really thorough oiling. Like, a really thorough oiling. Then I reinstalled the faceplate. Finally, the step I was most excited for had arrived. So I had a package arrive. It came all the way from the United Kingdom. I am going to show you what's inside of here. A vintage postcard. I just love a kindred spirit. So first we have a spoked hand wheel. We need this because there's a part on the actual crank that will slot into one of these spaces so that when you turn the crank, that's what's going to turn the wheel. The hand wheel I had on this when it was motorized didn't have these spokes, so I needed to get this to make the hand crank conversion work. And this is the hand crank. So this is that piece I was just talking about. This will go in between one of the spokes. This will bolt onto the machine. Hopefully that screw is in this box. And then you turn this. I mean, I'm gonna show you this all in a moment. I'm just so excited. Oh, excellent. Treasures. Okay, so this is the screw that is needed to attach the hand crank to the body of the machine. This is the stop motion knob. This will be attached to the hand wheel, and here's another part for it. This is what allows you to engage and disengage the needle bar so that the needle doesn't move when you are winding the bobbin. And then the seller also included some extra bobbins, which is excellent because I only had the one that came with the machine, and so now I can thread multiple different colors. So my next steps are to attach the hand crank to the machine, insert a needle, install a presser foot, try winding the bobbin, threading it, and seeing if this will stitch. This was such a straightforward process. Once I had the hand wheel attached, I gave it a spin. I then tried it with the needle bar disengaged. And with the bobbin winder engaged. Here's a closer look at the bobbin winder working. In fact, why don't we just wind a bobbin? What's cool about the Singer 99 is that once the bobbin is full, the winder will automatically disengage. And there it goes. I then inserted a needle, added a presser foot, and threaded the machine. Now it's time to test. Okay, I have wound the bobbin and inserted it into the bobbin feeder. I have threaded the upper part of the machine. I've put it back in its case to try to give it a bit more stability. Tried to set up the shot so that it's not totally awkward. I have a scrap of fabric. It's time to see if this machine sews. It's funny, I can feel my foot under the desk trying to search for a foot pedal. Here it goes. That is a lock stitch. This machine that is over 100 years old just sewed a lock stitch for me. Now, I have not messed with the tension or the stitch length at all, and I'm kind of tempted not to mess with them because that looks pretty good, but I'm going to do a little bit of experimenting, at least with the stitch length. So this is the stitch length regulator. I have no idea if clockwise or counterclockwise is what makes it bigger or smaller, so I'm just going to turn it all the way in so that it's flush with the body of the machine. Let's see what that does. Okay, so it made it slightly bigger. So I think this is my longest stitch, so that's what I will use for basting. You might have also noticed that somewhere over here is making a squeaking noise, and I realized that I never oiled the hand wheel, so I'm going to give that a drop of oil and see if that makes a difference with how this sounds. There is a little oil port back here. So we'll just... Okay, we'll see if that helps. I'm going to try turning this counterclockwise and seeing if I can get these stitches smaller. I don't know how big to make this adjustment, so I can see about one thread of this screw here. Let's see what that does. Oh, that's a small stitch. This is quite soothing. And I think that oil really helped. This feels great. Okay, so that made a smaller stitch. I will need to figure out a way to remember clockwise, big stitch, counterclockwise, little stitch. Another thing I'm noticing is that this base is wobbling a bit as I'm sewing, and so I'm just going to and let's do a few more passes. This stitch is a bit small for what I will typically be using, so I'm going to turn this in a bit more, but not all the way. This does, oh, that really helps. Oh, it feels so smooth. Well, now it's less satisfying because I cut my fabric in half. But wow! Look at that! So one thing this machine does not do is it does not do a reverse stitch. That was added as a feature in later models, but it is not in this one. There are some methods for securing the end of a stitch, and I think I'm going to just make an entire video about that because there are more than you would think. For now though, I am so pleased with how this is working. I haven't messed with the tension knob at all, and I don't think I'm going to because I'm very pleased with what I have so far, and I don't want to mess with success. Here it is, a Singer 99K from 1922, fully restored and converted into a hand crank machine. This is the first time I have used a hand crank sewing machine, and there really wasn't too much of a learning curve. Some things I did notice is that my foot kept hunting for a foot pedal because I'm so used to using them. I also wanted to keep turning the hand crank toward me rather than away from me, but I think I'll get used to that with time. It was also a little bit of an adjustment to hold the fabric with one hand only because the other was employed. It honestly reminded me a little bit of driving stick shift. There's just a little more to focus on. In a way, it also keeps you a bit more engaged and, again, interacting with this really cool piece of history. This restoration was so much fun and really epitomizes what it is I love about vintage sewing machines. With a few simple tools and a handful of specialty products, I was able to get this machine that is over 100 years old up and running and hopefully stitching for years to come. I can't think of many tools or technology in my life where I have that kind of interaction with. I am filming this video on a camera and I will edit it on a computer where if either of those things broke, I would have no idea what to do and I would probably have to buy a new one. Whereas with this, I can really see how it functions and get into all its little parts. It was made to be maintained by its user. That is just so satisfying and so empowering. So what is next for this machine? I would like to give the bentwood case a little bit of TLC. Now, I'm not a woodworker yet, but I do think I can get it looking a little bit nicer. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned that the whole way I justified buying this machine to myself is to create something that I can take camping with me. I love the idea of packing up my sewing setup, going off-grid, and sewing a garment completely outside. It sounds like a little bit of a logistical faff, and therefore I adore the idea. So if that sounds interesting to you, keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for watching this video. As you can tell, I really love these old machines, and it is so much fun to be able to connect with fellow enthusiasts online about it. Some of my very favorite comments to receive are the ones people leave telling me about their sewing machines, where they found them, who they remind them of, what they make with them. So if you have such a story, please let me know in the comments because it really does mean so much to me. And if you are new to this channel and enjoyed this video, I hope you consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next one.